Picture this. You are standing on a strip of land barely wide enough to call a road. On your left, the sea. On your right, a cliff face that goes straight up. And ahead of you, a wall of soldiers so massive it looks like the horizon itself has started moving toward you. You have 300 men. They have hundreds of thousands. And you already know none of you are walking away from this. Thermopylae is carved into the bones of Western history as the ultimate last stand. But legends are deceptive things. They hand you the final chapter and hide everything that came before it. They give you the blood and the glory and leave out the darkness that manufactured the man standing at the front of that line. Leonidas was not born a hero. He was a product. Something built deliberately by a society so consumed by fear of its own population that it transformed the raising of children into a form of organized warfare. Sparta was nothing like the rest of Greece. Forget the marble columns and the debates under olive trees. Sparta was a militarized state where a small class of free citizens sat on top of a vast enslaved population called the Helots, who outnumbered their masters by 10 to 1. Every morning the Spartans woke up knowing that if those same hands ever reached for weapons, Sparta would be gone before nightfall. So they chose fear as their primary instrument of control. They built a state-sanctioned death squad staffed by teenagers sent into the countryside with one assignment: hunt Helots. Kill anyone who looked strong enough to lead a resistance. It kept an entire population too terrified to think about freedom, and it trained the boys who carried it out to move in silence and end a life without hesitation. This was the world waiting for Leonidas around 540 BC, third son of the Agiad royal dynasty. At the age of 7, exactly like every other boy expected to become a full Spartan citizen, he was taken from his home and handed to the agoge. His royal name bought him nothing. The agoge was a years-long exercise in engineered suffering. 1 cloak per year through summer heat and winter cold. No shoes, no beds. Food kept deliberately scarce. Boys were expected to steal the rest, and beaten savagely if caught, not because theft was wrong, but because getting caught was weak. Older boys held total authority over younger ones. Public flogging competitions were held at religious shrines, while adults watched with approval. The entire mechanism existed to make pain irrelevant. Many boys shattered under that pressure. Ancient sources suggest Leonidas did not break that way. He adapted. Every scar and every cold night became fuel rather than despair. From all those years of enforced silence, he absorbed the quality Sparta prized above almost everything else: the philosophy of the fewest possible words. A true Spartan opened his mouth only when the words could land harder than a spear. His oldest brother Cleomenes inherited the throne without ever fully enduring the one process that defined what it meant to be Spartan. Brilliant at times, but erratic and increasingly unstable. His second brother Dorius, who had bled through every stage of the agoge, could not stomach living under a brother he considered undeserving. He sailed away to carve out his own kingdom in Sicily and marched directly into territory controlled by Carthage. He and nearly all his men were destroyed. Leonidas stayed. He watched how pride and impatience had driven Dorius to a meaningless end. The third son, the one no one had planned for, was quietly learning what it actually cost to survive long enough to matter. Eventually, Cleomenes spiraled beyond any limit, was declared insane by the ephors, imprisoned, and died under circumstances most historians consider deeply suspicious. Around 490 BC, Leonidas became king. He did not seize the throne.
He simply outlasted everyone ahead of him.
That same year, Persia suffered a humiliating defeat at Marathon against Athens. King Darius swore revenge. Death reached him first. His son Xerxes inherited an empire stretching from the Indus to the Aegean, along with his father's unfinished anger. Over the following years, he assembled a military force the ancient world had never witnessed. When Persian ambassadors spread across Greece demanding earth and water, the symbols of total submission, many cities complied. When they arrived in Sparta, the Spartans dragged them to a deep well. You will find all the earth and water you need at the bottom, and threw them in. War was now a certainty. The Greek strategist Themistocles proposed a plan. Force the enormous Persian army into choke points where its overwhelming numbers became a liability. Every map pointed to one location, Thermopylae, a narrow coastal pass where at its tightest points only a handful of men could stand side by side. Leonidas requested permission to mobilize the full Spartan army and hit a wall. The timing coincided with the Carnia, Sparta's most sacred religious festival. The law prohibited major military campaigns during it. The ephors refused. Leonidas found a way around them. The law prohibited the army from marching. It said nothing about a king traveling with his personal bodyguard of 300. He added one final requirement before departure. Only men who already had living sons could join. He did not believe these men were coming home, and he wanted every bloodline to continue after they were gone. This was not a gamble. It was a calculated sacrifice planned from the beginning. Before marching, he stopped at Delphi. The oracle delivered a prophecy with no room for interpretation. Either Sparta would be destroyed, or one of its kings would fall. A life for a civilization. For Leonidas, it was almost clarifying. His death was not merely possible, it was required. The fighting that followed was unlike anything the Persian commanders had experienced. Wave after wave crashed into the Spartan phalanx and disintegrated. The pass was too narrow for numbers to matter. When Xerxes sent his elite immortals on the second day, the result was identical. The Greek line held. Then a local man named Ephialtes revealed a hidden mountain trail that wound directly behind the Greek position. A flanking force was sent under cover of darkness. The Phocian soldiers Leonidas had stationed to guard that path pulled back in fear when they heard thousands of armored men climbing through the dark. The trail was open. By dawn on the third day, the trap was closing. Leonidas ordered the Allied forces to withdraw south. They had a mission: keep Greece alive for the battles ahead. His 300 would stay. 700 soldiers from Thespia chose to stay beside them, knowing their city lay directly in the path of what was coming. On that final morning, Leonidas walked the line and met the eyes of every man still standing. One command: fill your stomachs now. Tonight, we dine in Hades. He ordered his men forward beyond the wall into open ground, choosing to die moving rather than be crushed between two closing forces. The fighting that day was savage and without structure. When spears splintered, they drew swords. When swords broke, they used whatever remained. Leonidas fought in the front ranks until he fell. The Spartans closed around his body and repelled 4 separate assaults trying to drag it away, killing 2 of Xerxes' own brothers in the process. Eventually, the encirclement was complete. Xerxes ordered the archers forward. When the volley stopped, the mound was carpeted with the dead. Then Xerxes found the body of Leonidas and ordered it decapitated, the head mounted on a stake for the entire army to see. If that act was meant to shatter Greek morale, it achieved the exact opposite. The story that swept through Greece was not that Leonidas had been defeated. It was that he had terrified the King of Kings so deeply that Xerxes had to mutilate a dead man just to feel he had won. Those 3 days purchased what Greece needed: Weeks later, at Salamis, the Greek fleet destroyed the Persian navy in narrow straits using the same principle Leonidas had applied on land. Xerxes withdrew. The following year, at Plataea, the last Persian land force on Greek soil was broken. The dream of conquering Greece died in those fields. Leonidas was not a hero by modern standards. He was the perfect product of a system built on slavery and systematic cruelty. He walked into that pass knowing a prophecy had already demanded his death and obeyed without hesitation. Sparta created something monstrous, and when the moment arrived that civilization needed something unbreakable standing in front of it, that creation did exactly what it had been built to do. Xerxes commanded hundreds of thousands of soldiers and the largest empire on earth. Leonidas had a narrow pass and 300 men, and a city that would not even send its full army because a religious festival took priority. But he controlled the one thing Xerxes never understood: the story. And by choosing to die where the whole world would witness it, Leonidas turned Thermopylae from a battle into a symbol that has never stopped echoing. Xerxes tried to erase his enemy by mutilating a corpse. Instead, he carved Leonidas deeper into human memory than any monument ever could.